There was a time when you stayed quiet, tolerated everything, and sacrificed yourself just to keep the peace with someone you now realize never truly deserved your heart. But today, you're different. You're no longer easy to manipulate. You no longer seek validation from someone who only ever drained your energy. You are strong, clear, and no longer afraid of their tired old games. And that terrifies them more than anything. Because for a narcissist, control is everything. When you stop reacting the way they expect, when your silence becomes a choice, not surrender, you shatter their reality. That's when they flip the script, play the victim, or cast you as the villain. But you see through it. And your clarity is what scares them most. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how a narcissist reacts when they realize you've grown too strong to be controlled. You'll understand why they shift their behavior, why they rewrite the story, and most importantly, how you can hold on to your power without falling back into their toxic cycle. If you've ever loved the wrong person, if you've ever been manipulated, this video is your gift to yourself. So hit subscribe, click that like button, and stay with me until the end, because once you understand how they operate, you're no longer the victim. You're the survivor, and you're rewriting your story now. 1. They panic when you stop playing by their rules. A narcissist builds their world on one core principle: control. Not love, not genuine connection. Control the comfort of knowing they can pull you back, shake your confidence, make you question whether you're good enough, worthy enough, lovable enough. They survive by manipulating the emotions of others to inflate their own fragile ego. But what happens when you, the one who once tolerated, forgave, and held on for love, suddenly stop reacting? No more tears, no more arguments, no more explanations, no more coming back. Your silence is no longer surrender. It's a strategy, a declaration. And to a narcissist, that is a devastating blow, because they no longer know what to do when you're no longer afraid of them. That's when they begin to unravel. The old tactics, blame-shifting, guilt-tripping, dramatic apologies don't work anymore. They start to realize the puppet has broken free. And to a narcissist, that's a nightmare: being ignored, being irrelevant, no longer having an audience for their performance. They might panic in subtle ways, not always with loud anger. Sometimes it's turning up the manipulation, a long emotional message filled with regret, or a heart-to-heart where they suddenly get it. Other times it's full-on victim mode. I can't live without you. Everything's my fault. I know I was terrible. But don't be fooled. That's not awakening, it's strategy. Because here's the truth: they can't stand the fact that you can live without them. And this is what you need to remember. A narcissist doesn't love you the way you loved them. They don't hurt because they lost you. They hurt because they lost control. They lost the feeling of being important, being the center of your emotional universe. When you become stronger, they don't just feel rejected, they feel irrelevant. Because without the ability to manipulate you, the story they've built about their power, their worth, begins to collapse. That's when they'll move into the next stage, rewriting the truth, a phase we'll dive into in the next section. But right now, in this panic stage, the most important thing is that you don't respond with your old pattern. Every time you stay silent instead of defending yourself, every time you walk away instead of engaging, you force them to confront a power vacuum they used to fill with your pain. You don't need to win an argument with a narcissist. The real victory is no longer needing to be part of the argument at all. And do you know what scares them the most? Not your anger, not your harsh words, but your silence and the fact that you're still thriving without them. 2. They twist the truth to save their image. When a narcissist realizes they no longer have control over you, they're not trying to understand you. What they're really doing is finding a new way to regain power by rewriting the truth. They begin telling new stories about you, not to you, but to anyone who will listen. And the scary part: they tell those stories with such conviction it almost seems like they've convinced themselves. At first, it might be just a tiny sliver of truth. Maybe you once raised your voice, broke down, or stormed out. But instead of giving the full picture, the emotional abuse, the betrayal, the silent suffering you endured, they cut out the parts that make them look bad and insert details that make you look unstable, toxic, or even manipulative. The result: A story that sounds believable but is completely distorted. One they share with family friends, coworkers, even their new partner. Why do they do this? Because being abandoned makes them feel worthless. And instead of sitting with that feeling, they choose to rebuild their identity by destroying yours. This is where the smear campaign begins. You might start hearing strange rumors. People who used to be close to you begin to pull away. Some might message you with that uncomfortable question, "Hey, what happened between you two?" Their tone unsure, their trust wavering even when you know you've done nothing wrong. And the most confusing part, sometimes you were the one who left them, but they go around telling everyone that you betrayed, abused, or discarded them. A narcissist's ego cannot handle being the one who lost. They need to have the last word. They need to be seen as the winner, even if it means completely twisting the truth and casting you as the villain. And you know what hurts the most? Some people will believe them. Not because those people are bad, but because narcissists are often masterful storytellers. Their narratives are emotional, polished, and perfectly tailored to tug on the heartstrings. They know exactly how to tap into people's sympathy with just the right amount of scripted pain. So what should you do? Don't react impulsively. Don't run around trying to correct every lie. Because the more you try to prove your side, the more you risk walking into their trap, one where you end up looking like the second version of the victim. Instead, hold on to your truth. Let your calm, grounded presence speak louder than their chaos. Your composure is what they fear most. And the people who truly know you over time will see through the lies. No one can rewrite history forever. You don't need to explain yourself to the world to prove your worth. Let them say what they will. You live in a way that lets the truth speak for itself. That is your victory. 3. They play the perfect victim to trigger sympathy. When their lies start unraveling. When you stop reacting the way you used to. When you no longer participate in the emotional tug-of-war, the narcissist shifts roles again, this time into the perfect victim. They've lost control over you. They can no longer guilt you or pull you back in, so now they need something else: sympathy from others. At any cost. Suddenly, they're the one who tried everything. The one who loved deeply, but was betrayed. The one who wanted to fix things, but was pushed away without warning. The stories they tell come with just the right tone. Soft voice, pained eyes, tears cued perfectly on demand. But behind all that is a carefully crafted manipulation tactic. Because they know compassion can turn even skeptical people into believers. This is where they start activating their flying monkeys: friends, family, coworkers, mutual connections, people who weren't there for the abuse, but who are quick to take sides after hearing a tragic monologue. You'll begin to notice those people looking at you differently, with confusion or worse, judgment. And here's a tactic they often use. The narcissist tells part of the truth but removes the context and reverses the roles. Example: you walked away because of emotional abuse, but they'll say, "She left me right when I was falling apart. I begged her to stay and she just turned her back." No one mentions the years you endured in silence. No one talks about the nights you cried yourself to sleep hoping they'd change. No one says a word about the trauma that made walking away your only option. And the hardest part? Some people will believe them. Because from the outside looking in, you're the one who's quiet, withdrawn, and refusing to talk. They're the one crying, opening up, being vulnerable. And let's face it, people often sympathize with the one who sheds more tears, not the one who stays composed. But you need to remember this. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your healing. You left not because you didn't care, but because you were exhausted, heartbroken, and pushed beyond your limits. You don't owe anyone a breakdown just to prove you were broken. And if someone turns their back on you because they only heard one side, let them go. The truth doesn't need to rush, it just needs to endure. Those who are mature enough will eventually see the truth after the curtain falls. Keep your clarity. Keep your peace. Because when you don't retaliate, don't defend, don't try to prove anything, you're dismantling their entire manipulation structure, and that is what confuses them the most. 4. They panic at the sight of your true freedom. What terrifies a narcissist the most isn't when you walk away, it's when you don't look back. Your silence, once a temporary protest, has now become a lasting absence, a space they can no longer enter, influence, or control. And that's when the real panic begins. To a narcissist, a breakup isn't the end. In their mind, it's just a phase. They fully expect you to return just like all the times before, when you forgave their lies, when you answered their late-night texts, when you felt guilty for being too harsh. They believe all it takes is the right button, the right performance, the right manipulation, and you'll come running back. But this time it's different. You're silent, unreachable, detached. You don't check their updates, you don't respond, and most importantly, you don't feel the pull anymore. That's when they realize the control is gone. Your freedom isn't just about your absence. It's a quiet declaration that they are no longer the center of your emotional world. And for someone who builds their identity on emotional dominance, that realization cuts deep. They're no longer the one who defines your reality, your self-worth, or your truth. Their panic may not always be explosive. Sometimes it's quiet. They lurk in the shadows, checking your profile from burner accounts, asking mutual friends about your life, making cryptic comments, hoping to provoke a response. What they're really doing is testing you. Are you still emotionally invested? Because if you react with anger, with sorrow, with any emotional charge, they'll feel like they still matter. But if you remain calm, continue thriving, and don't look back, that's when they finally get it. The game is over. And then comes the chaos. They might rush into a new relationship and parade it online. Photos, love-bombing captions, public displays of affection, all calculated for one purpose: to get your attention. But this new partner isn't about love, it's bait, a mirror they hold up hoping you'll flinch. If you react, they win. But if you don't, if you keep walking forward unfazed, their entire illusion begins to collapse. They realize they haven't just lost you. They've lost the emotional supply that once kept their ego alive. That's when they start spiraling, not because they miss you, but because without someone to reflect their power, they're forced to face themselves. And the emptiness they find there is unbearable. Your freedom becomes a mirror, one that reflects the truth they've long avoided. They were never in control. They were never as powerful as they believed. And no story, no smear campaign, no new partner can hide the fact that you're living without them fully, peacefully, beautifully. They never expected this. They thought they were unforgettable. They thought you'd always need closure. But your silence, that is closure. Your peace, that's the final word. The truth is, they're not panicking because you left. They're panicking because you left and never came back. You're no longer fighting to be understood. You're no longer shouting into a void, demanding accountability. You've stepped off the stage entirely. Because real power isn't about winning arguments. Real power is not needing to play the game at all. And your peace, the life you're building without them, didn't come from their apology. It came from your courage, the decision to walk away from a place that kept shrinking your soul. And that is what terrifies them most. Not your anger, not your words, but your quiet, unstoppable freedom. 5. Their final attempt to pull you back in, and why it's the most dangerous trap. After every failed attempt to reel you back, the emotional manipulation, the smear campaigns, the victim performance, the narcissist enters the final phase of their game, trying to get you to come back. But it's not out of love. It's not because they've changed. It's because your unwavering silence has struck the deepest part of their fragile ego. They simply cannot handle the idea that you are truly at peace without them. Your absence isn't just physical, it's symbolic. A mirror held up to their lack of power. And that's why they return quietly, gently, even sweetly. You might get a message out of nowhere. I haven't stopped thinking about you. I realize now how much I messed up. Losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. No one ever understood me like you did. This time, they're not playing the role of the controller. They're playing the role of the changed person. They want you to believe this time is different, that they've finally come to terms with everything they put you through, that they're ready to grow. But here's the harsh truth. There is no genuine remorse inside the narcissist. These apologies are not acts of healing. They are tactical moves to reactivate your compassion, to pull you back into the role they miss the most. the forgiver, the rescuer, the one they could still control. And this is exactly why this last attempt is the most dangerous one. Because it doesn't look like the previous patterns. It's not loud, aggressive, or overtly manipulative. This time it's soft, calculated, disarming. They know that if they speak your emotional language, if they touch the part of you that still remembers the love, they might shake you. And if you take even one small step back, just a text, just a call, just a moment of hesitation, they'll slide their way back into your life, quietly, gently. And at first it'll feel different, like maybe they really did change. But not long after the old patterns return. Because narcissists don't transform, they evolve their methods. The gaslighting becomes more subtle. The guilt trips become quieter. The push-pull dynamic becomes less obvious but far more damaging because now you know better, yet you're back inside the same cage. That's where the pain deepens, not because you believed them, but because you already survived them once, and now you're reliving it. The truth is, the narcissist doesn't want you. They want the proof that they can still have you. They don't care about rebuilding anything. They care about confirming this. I still have access to your emotions. I still matter. So when they return with remorse, understand this, every word is designed to reclaim power. Nothing more, nothing less. You've fought too hard to get where you are now. You've cried in silence, rebuilt yourself piece by piece, and learned how to breathe without depending on their validation. Don't let a moment of nostalgia undo all that progress. Forgiveness doesn't mean re-entry. Peace doesn't mean open doors. Self-love doesn't require you to rescue those who won't rescue themselves. They'll tell you they've changed, but if you wait, if you watch closely, if you protect your peace, you'll see it. They haven't grown, they've just gotten better at hiding it. And this final return, if you respond with silence, with boundaries, with no need for closure, that will be your real victory. Not because you got revenge, but because you're no longer susceptible to empty promises. You've learned the lesson, and this time you're not repeating the test. 6. When you no longer respond and they're finally forced to face themselves. There was a time when every thought, every emotion, every decision you made revolved around them. They were the center. The piece you kept trying to make fit. The question that haunted your sleepless nights. What can I do to make them change? But then came the day after too many invisible wounds when you chose to step away in silence. No more fighting, no more explaining, no need for a dramatic ending. You simply stopped responding. And in that moment, the carefully constructed performance they had directed for so long began to collapse. Narcissists feed on your reactions. They read your face measure, your silences, manipulate every feeling you show. But when there's no reaction, no clue, no emotional energy left for them to absorb, they're like an actor left alone on a stage with no audience. Stunned. Lost. For the first time, they have no one to blame, no one to control, no one to provoke or perform for. And for the first time, they are forced to face the one thing they've avoided all their lives themselves. With no one else to reflect off of their fragile ego begins to crack. Without your emotional mirror, they no longer have a sense of identity. Of course, they might try to find a replacement, a new audience, a fresh emotional supply. But deep down, they know no one will ever reflect their power the way you once did. Not because you were weak, but because you once loved them with a sincerity they'll never find again. With nowhere left to project outward, the chaos turns inward. They might still put on a mask, happy photos, confident updates, the same arrogant energy. But deep beneath the surface, a void is expanding. They no longer have anyone to exist through, no more roles to manipulate, no more narratives to control. And for the first time, they're being haunted by a reality they can't twist. You're gone, fully, completely, and without explanation. But don't confuse this with transformation. This isn't a moment of clarity. It's an identity crisis. They're not realizing what they lost. They're panicking over who they are without your energy to anchor them. They don't know how to be alone without feeling worthless. Your absence becomes the most honest mirror they've ever faced, proof that they were never as important as they believed and never as in control as they claimed. In all the victories you once dreamed of making them regret, making them beg, making them collapse, you probably never imagined the most powerful one would come in complete silence. No dramatic exits, no declarations, just stillness. And in that stillness, your message is louder than words. I don't need you to know my worth. I've learned my lesson. I'm no longer part of your performance. And that more than any revenge is what shatters their illusion. You are no longer their mirror, no longer their emotional fuel, no longer the character in their script. And when the mirror breaks, the image they built through you disappears, leaving behind a truth they've spent their whole life avoiding. They don't know who they are without someone to control. But your victory isn't about breaking them. It's about no longer needing them to validate you. You've proven your worth in the quiet life you've built, one rooted in peace, autonomy, and strength. You've learned to soothe your own wounds, to rewrite your own story, to rebuild a life where they no longer belong. They may keep performing, but you are no longer in the audience. And without an audience, the curtain falls. True freedom isn't just when you leave the narcissist. It's when they no longer live rent-free in your mind. They might still exist somewhere in your memories on social media through mutual acquaintances. But now they have no hold on your emotional state. They're no longer a presence. They're just a closed chapter. You don't need closure from them anymore because you've written your own. A peaceful ending, a powerful beginning, and a future they'll never be part of. 7. The healing journey. When you don't just escape them, you become the strongest version of yourself. Leaving a narcissist isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. The beginning of a journey where you no longer fight to be loved properly, no longer sacrifice yourself just to be seen, no longer abandon who you are just to hold on to someone who never deserved you. At first, you might think that distance is enough, that simply walking away will bring healing, but then you realize the deepest wounds weren't physical. They were planted inside of you, the beliefs they conditioned you to accept that you're not enough, that love must be earned, that your value depends on how much you can tolerate. Those words over time became your inner voice, and even after they're gone, that voice can echo. That's when the real healing begins. Not about forgetting them, but about remembering yourself. You slowly start tuning out the noise of their manipulation and begin listening to your own inner truth again. You look in the mirror and for the first time see someone trying, someone growing, someone coming back to life. Not the broken version they left behind, but a human being rebuilding themselves piece by piece from love, not fear. Healing is never a straight path. Some days you'll feel powerful. Other days, vulnerable. There will be moments when you miss them, or rather, miss the idea of who you thought they were. But this isn't regression, it's part of the process. To heal is to feel, and to feel is to face the wound, not numb it. Most importantly, you're no longer looking for someone else to save you. You're no longer waiting for someone to tell you you're worthy. Because now you know it for yourself. You begin to realize that leaving them wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about giving yourself the space to become fully, unapologetically you. And day by day, you step out of the role of the victim, not by erasing your past, but by looking at it with clarity, not bitterness. Because that experience, as painful as it was, forced you to awaken. It forced you to grow. It made you ask, who am I when I'm no longer defined by someone else's control? And you answer that question every day with the choices you make, the boundaries you set, the way you now treat yourself. You choose peace over chaos, truth over people-pleasing, forward over looking back. That's when you stop living to protect yourself from past pain and start building a life rooted in new purpose. You become the strongest version of yourself, not because you defeated them, but because you defeated the part of you that once believed you couldn't live without them. And now, you haven't just escaped the narcissist. You've escaped every old version of yourself that was shaped by their lies, their limits, and their control. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to keep going. And that quiet daily courage in every decision, every moment you don't look back, is what makes you untouchable now. You are no longer the broken one, no longer the shadow of who you were. You are you, whole, wise, and finally free. If you've made it through this journey with me, from the quiet manipulation, the mind games, to the moment you stood tall, stayed silent, and walked away, then you know one thing for sure: you are no longer who you used to be. No longer the one who tiptoed around others just to keep the peace. No longer the one who silenced their voice so no one would be upset. No longer the one who asked, "Am I asking for too much?" Now you're someone who knows your boundaries. Someone who knows they deserve love that doesn't come with pain. Someone who understands that no one, no matter how important they once were, has the right to make you doubt your worth. You don't need the narcissist to see you anymore. You don't need them to come back to admit fault to finally understand, because you've stepped out of the story they wrote and started writing your own. And if there's one final message I want you to take with you after this video, it's this: you didn't just survive, you're rising. Day by day, breath by breath, you are coming back, not to who you were, but to someone stronger. And the life ahead of you, though still unwritten, is yours now. No more control, no more manipulation, just you with the power to decide what's worthy of staying. And if this message touched your heart, hit that subscribe button so we can keep walking this healing path together, reclaiming peace, rebuilding purpose, and becoming everything you were always meant to be.